Hey everybody, this is Texas State Representative Trey Martinez Fischer, and welcome to Politex, your one-stop shop for all things politics, all things Texas. Thank you for supporting the show. Keep following us on social media at TMFTX on both Facebook and Twitter. We're going to have a fantastic show. We're going to talk about some of our champions, both inside the Capitol and outside the Capitol. They're standing up and fighting back against people who are trying to attack the LGBTQ community. And we're also going to take it inside the scene to talk about how these folks are working together outside advocacy groups and lawmakers on the inside to work towards a common goal, and that's to put a stop to these anti-LGBTQ bills and start pushing back. And so we're going to have a wonderful show today. Thank you for joining us on Politex. Thank you for listening. If you have a suggestion for the show or an idea for a potential episode, I value your feedback. Email your suggestions to contact@TreyMartinezFisher.com. As always, thank you for listening to Politex. Okay, we're back. This is going to be a wonderful discussion. I think we've been talking about everything happening at the Texas Capitol, and you know, no legislative session is complete in Austin, Texas, without somebody getting picked on, and so that sometimes is whether you're a minority and it comes to your voter suppression, or whether it comes to women and their right to have control over their bodies and make their healthcare decisions. And then, you know, there's always, you know, been, you know, the consummate attack on the LGBTQ community. And that's what we're seeing here in 2021. And so, I thought it was important that we highlight that and we talk about it. And so I've put together what I think is a pretty rock star group of folks who are, you know, thankfully not putting up with that BS and have actually put their foot down and have said, hey, we're going to do something about it. And so let me introduce our guests and who they are, and then we'll talk about sort of the background and what brought us all together. And so we first have, Amber Briggle, and Amber sort of, fell on my radar back in 2017 when she was very vocal on fighting the bathroom bill. And if you forgot about the bathroom bill, that was when the Lieutenant Governor and Governor Abbott and everybody else said that you had to go to the bathroom, based on your gender at the time of your birth. Amber was saying we're not doing that, and fought back hard. And because of her work and a lot of others, you know, that bathroom bill never saw the light of day in 2017. And so, Amber, thank you for being on this pod. And we also have one of my heroes, one of my sheroes, and that's Representative Celia Israel. And, you know, I can't really describe who she is. I just have to use sort of the shorthand that we use in the Capitol. She's a badass. I mean, that's what she is. You know, no bones about it. She works hard. She fights for her community. And she, you know, does the most important thing is that she mentors the young members to make sure that when they come to the legislature, they know exactly what their job is. She is the third person to serve who, you know, made it clear that she was openly gay. And she is a founding member of the LGBTQ Caucus. And I'm a proud member of that caucus. And so, Celia, thank you for being on the pod. And then we have Jessica Shortall, and a nationally recognized author, a speaker, LGBTQ advocate. She's the founder and managing director of the Texas Competes, which is a national model of advocacy for communities in deep red states to fight back and push back on folks that have anti-LGBTQ agendas. And so thank you all for making time. I know it's not ideal. 2021 has been no different than any other session. There's been an attack on the rights of the LGBTQ community. It seems to be more prolific in the state Senate, but, you know, Civics 101 tells us that those bad ideas from the Senate, you know, somehow find their way over to the Texas House. And so, you know, we are tracking these bills on a daily occurrence, daily basis. And, we did notice in the news, lots of reporting, lots of discussion about a bill that would require kids that competed in UIL sports that they had to match the gender on the teams they played on that match their birth certificates, Senate Bill 29. And so, you know, Amber, I'm going to lead off with you. You took this bull by the horns and you owned it. And so, you know, give me a little bit, tell me a little bit about yourself, talk to me about Max, and tell me why you felt it was important to take a stand and fight SB 29.
Yeah. Oh, thanks so much for having me here today. And again, apologies for my background. I'm being a mom and I've got to go grocery shopping, but I'm always happy to talk about this because when I testified against SB 6, I'm sorry, can we talk about 1646? Because that was the one I testified about. And they're all, I mean, they're all one and the same. They're all attacks against trans kids. When I testified against SB 1646 a couple weeks ago, there were two senators from that committee who were in that room to hear us. They sat there for an hour or more listening to transphobic people working off of old debunked science and just junk facts, alternative facts, And so in fact, one of their star witnesses was convicted of fraud, 121 counts of fraud, and he was their star witness. They all sat in there and listened to him tell these awful lies about us as parents and about our transgender children. And then when we, the people, because they work for us, we drove hours to be there. Many of us had to rent hotel rooms to spend the night to be there, on time the day of. When we, the people, showed up to testify and plead and beg and plead for mercy for hours, there were two people in there to hear us. So I'm so grateful that we could be here today. I showed up because I have a transgender child. And I really, and also as a taxpayer, like I really feel, as I said in my testimony, that the Texas legislature has much bigger problems to solve than these made up issues of how we are raising our children. If my son Max is, he's an athlete, he's articulate, he's brilliant, he's a straight A student, very popular in school.
He's awesome.
He's super awesome. And he is, by all definitions, he's like the model child. He's a perfect, absolutely perfect child. And so for those senators, for Senator Perry to accuse me of child abuse, for doing what I need to do to keep my son healthy, mentally and physically, I had to take a stand against that. And as I said in my testimony, I was really terrified to do it because I was going on the record, saying that I have a transgender child. And I'm concerned that those words will be used against me should this bill pass, but I'm really, really grateful for the attention that my testimony has gotten, along with the testimony of brave transgender children like Kai Shapley, that really seems to resonate with people across Texas and across the country. And we are starting to see some of these bills fail because I think we're really starting to strike, it's resonating with people. Something is really kind of clicking with them. Crying mothers and adorable children, that's something we can all relate to. So that's why I showed up and we're seeing all these attacks against transgender children. And it's just, honestly, y'all, we've got better things to be doing than singling out these beautiful, thriving children. We really can we fix ERCOT? I think, have you done a podcast about ERCOT yet? That would be a great thing to address with the time that you have.
We've had 2 pods on ERCOT. So yes,
Right.
Thank you. And we're going to get Celia to talk about that. But listen, look, coming up to Austin, testifying, telling your story, that's a lot of anxiety. It's a lot of stress. But, tell folks that are listening to this pod and watching this, how do we join your fight? How do people engage on this topic? How do we pick up advocates for Max?
Well, I think continue to amplify the voices of transgender youth is really important. I think normalizing the stories of healthy, well-adjusted, trans-inclusive families. I think I would love for the media to do more stories on families like mine because, I'm sitting here in a minivan, there's nothing threatening about me at all. And I think a lot of times, unfortunately, we see really tragic stories of transgender youth in the news. And those stories absolutely need to be told 100%. But I think we need to start normalizing, normal trans families, healthy families, because I think if all you're seeing in the news is these awful, tragic stories, I think it's easy for people to jump to conclusions that, these children really are hurting and that we need to save them, right? So I think that would be my ask to the media is do more stories on kids like my son Max, because he's super awesome. As far as average everyday Texans go, I think the 2 biggest things you can do right now would be to call your House representative, call the speaker, make sure that we're stopping these bills everywhere we can. And the other thing too would be to vote in the primaries, because I think a lot of Republicans are using this as this red meat issue to drive out the base. They're forgetting the fact that they're putting these vulnerable, beautiful, precious transgender children on the front lines of a culture war that they have invented to drive out the base. So I think it's really important that people remember that they need to get out and vote in the primaries, not only on election day, on general election day, to make sure that we're, if people keep getting reelected, they're going to keep thinking that this strategy is going to keep working, and they're going to keep doing it. So we need to shut it down in any way we can.
Good. No, thank you. Well, Celia, I'm going to tell you, Amber went there, right? She must be sitting with us in the Capitol, talking about, these red meat wedge issues that do nothing while Texas freezes, while our children can't get federal funding for the schools. I mean, you talk about misplaced priorities all the time. I mean, tell me how this, sort of transphobic legislative agendas of lawmakers, how it sort of misdirects from the real issues that we need to be focused on. And, share with us how we talk about that, quite often.
Well, I'll give you an example. And Amber, thank you for your voice. Thank you for being real. I really admire that. One of the things people say about me is that they always say, well, she's just Celia. And I think that's the best compliment they can give us as politicians, like just be you. When I speak about this topic, I'm always channeling my 9-year-old self. And I think I picked 9 years old because I was a really avid Dallas Cowboy fan at the time. And I could tell you the entire, the jerseys and the positions and who they were. And, it's about and when it comes to kids, LGBTQ kids in particular, it really upsets me. I mean, if we want to fight about abortion access, if we want to fight about election law, that's one thing. The courts will eventually, hopefully, come around and support us. But when we're fighting on the House floor, number one, we're doing damage to our political relationships, so we ain't getting crap done on big, meaty, weighty things, or even the not so meaty, weighty things. And number two, we're doing harm to kids and their families. And I've seen the letters. I've had people come and say to me that when I think about the 9-year-old Celia, I think our kids are more prone to suicide and being put in a dangerous situation. And I just want kids to just be kids. I don't want them to feel like I'm weird or what's wrong with me, or do I need to be fixed? No, you don't need to be fixed. You need to strap on your Converse and go play basketball and just be a kid. And so I channel that all the time. Our caucus, the founding members of the caucus, we all kind of hang together. We work with our colleagues like Trey, Martinez, Fischer, and others when it's time to play really smart defense. Do we enjoy it? No, because we don't want to have to go there, because we know that by virtue of having to go through that kabuki theater that we do on the House floor, we're doing damage to children and their families. We're making them feel less than. But on the other hand, we'll fight for them every day, every minute, because it's the right thing to do, to reassure them that there's nothing wrong with you. And what's wrong is this crazy system that we have. And Amber's absolutely right. We need to be more beholden to a November voter, not a March voter. But until that time, vote and make sure that your colleagues know where you stand. Your representatives know where you stand.
Well, tell our listeners, I mean, in the legislature, it just takes a piece of paper to form a caucus. And we have a lot of caucuses for entertainment. We have the Sportsman's Caucus. We have if you like rap music, there's a hip hop caucus, But the LGBTQ caucus is about business. I mean, it's not a social caucus. And so, tell our audience a little bit about the work that the caucus does, and so how you sort of organize and you're the playmakers when it comes to these issues that are transphobic or anti-LGBTQ.
Well, the caucus, the good thing is in Texas, we now have enough members of the LGBTQ community to form a caucus. Before it was me and Mary Gonzalez, and that's about it. So there's strength in numbers. No one knows better than the master, that is Trey Martinez Fischer, about how you moving in concert and with some synchronization and thought ahead of time means you can kill bad stuff. And that's the position that Trey and I have been put in for the last several sessions, is play smart defense and kill bad stuff. Mm-hmm. And nothing happens inside the dome. without pressure outside the dome. And that's where Jessica and her crew comes in. And that's where Amber and your family comes in, is speaking up for yourselves. It's critical. Nothing moves without your voice. And we really appreciate that.
No, well, that's well said. And I'm going to switch over to Jessica, but first, Jessica, I owe you an apology. This is a really low tech, no filter show. And I must have mispronounced your last name because they handed me a note, you didn't see it. So it is Jessica Shortall. I don't know.
I have gotten Shortfall more times than you could ever possibly know. So it's all right.
Well, the producer's having a panic attack over here.
My husband's name. We're okay.
All right. Well, we're good. Well, listen, first, apologies for that. Number two, thank you. Tell me about Texas Competes, because look, I think that we can have the best defense, and Amber can come and she can rattle the cage and she can, get us fired up, and then we do our thing. And sometimes, it's just sort of glossed over. But when you get a Fortune 100 or a Fortune 10, or you get a spokesperson to say, you know what, that's crap, and we're not going to put up with it. Tell us about your work at Texas Competes and how you come in and play such a strong role in being, that grassroots advocate that we need on the outside.
Yeah, happy to. It is a great honor to get to do this work, and I've gotten to know Amber because of it. I mentioned my husband. I'm straight and I'm cisgender. I didn't know a single transgender person that I knew of when I started doing this 6 years ago. I started doing it. I care about people, but honestly, also there was just a really strong economic case. And I thought, and this argument hasn't been presented to the public, and it's an important one. But 6 years later, here I am crying at my desk a lot because I've gotten to meet so many incredible people that have absolutely changed me. So there's a personal element to it now for me, but my actual job is running this business coalition. So Texas Competes and Texas Competes Action, we are now almost 1,500 big and small businesses and chambers and convention visitors bureaus in Texas. We are the largest, first, I believe, and definitely largest state coalition of our kind in the country, focused on asking the state to be welcoming to LGBTQ people and making the economic case to do that. And it's been, I mentioned my journey. It's been a journey for the business allies that we have too. We launched in 2015. That year, there was go in the Wayback Machine, a proposed constitutional amendment to update the state's RFRA, Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which is in place and seems to work well, and to make it super broad so anyone could discriminate against anyone based on religious reasons. And that failed that year. We lived through the decade that was 2017 with the bathroom bill. And then 2019, we saw a return to these kind of religious-based arguments. We had SB 17 that would have allowed doctors, nurses, plumbers, any licensed professional in the state to discriminate. And they tried to kill the non-discrimination ordinances in the state. And now here we are. And so the business folks have, they've come on a journey too, right? Because they're coming to the Capitol, they're seeing the rallies for these discriminatory bills that are happening. They're hearing what people are saying, and they've gotten really emotionally and personally invested too, because they see moms like Amber and kids standing up for themselves. So it's been, I would rather none of it had happened, right? Because as Amber mentioned, the airing of these things as if they are debates is very traumatic, very. And it does real harm to real people. So in 2017, the Trevor Project, which is a youth crisis hotline for LGBTQ youth, they saw all these weird spikes in calls from Texas area codes. And so they gave us the dates for the spikes, and I mapped them across, okay, when did it come out of committee? When did the bathroom bill pass the Senate? When did they hold a rally? Ron Simmons hold a rally on the steps of the Capitol or whatever. And that map of those calls mapped exactly to those events. So every time this debate, for the audio listeners, this is air quotes, was normalized and elevated, kids went into crisis. And so there is a business case to all of this because it's hurting people, and businesses are saying, hey, over here, these are our people too. These are our employees and their children. We got LGBTQ workers, we got workers with LGBTQ kids. They are scared out of their minds. A, we care about them, just values, and B, that makes them less productive, more likely to leave the state, less likely to be willing to move to the state, and it hurts tourism. So I've got data Amber can tell you for days, but In 2017, when we went into special session, Texas lost $66 million in conventions and meetings around the state. So that was without a bill. Was it them going, you know what? Enough. Y'all can't get it together and kill this thing. We're going to go somewhere where we're not going to get complaints from participants, speakers, sponsors, whatever. And they're like, we're out. And we asked all the convention and visitors bureaus, is there more if it does pass? And they told us, and we tallied it up, it was $1.4 billion in potential tourism cancellations, just tourism. And that's real people. That's caterers and hotel cleaners and taxi drivers and bartenders and sign printers and massage therapists like Amber, who got to give people a massage when they're tired after a long conference all day. So the business case is super clear, but we're also seeing businesses are putting a ton of heart into this, because the more nasty and more targeted the attacks get, and this year they're just going after children, the more it's like, what are we doing here? Who are we? So business folks are really invested.
Right.
And cloaking it as Title IX, defending women's athletes.
Right.
There's a lot of women testify this week in the House Pub Ed Committee. I remember one woman said, I would like to respectfully decline the protection you're offering me. I don't need you to save me. Thanks.
And so, and you brought up the House Pub Ed hearing. I mean, and this really just sort of proves, how this, three-legged stool that we have on this pod, Amber's advocacy, telling Max's story, standing up for Max, resonates. And people like Celia, are banging on the drum on the inside, working the inside baseball inside this Capitol. And then, of course, Jessica, you on the outside with your advocacy, small businesses, chambers of commerce, Fortune 100s, folks saying enough is enough. When it's all working, you see outcomes like Chairman Dutton saying, I think this UIL bill that attacks trans kids is DOA, is dead on arrival. We all, it's sad, but we ought to be, take a bow for this synchronization that worked. The sad thing is there's 4 or 5 bills that are just as bad, if not worse. So, we can't give up. As Celia said, defense is the new way of lawmaking these days. Please tell us, how can we help Texas Competes? What is your ask to make sure people are paying attention to the work you're doing, and whether they can volunteer or promote you on social media? What's the best way to promote your work?
Thank you. So any business, any Texas employer, even if you got one person, or Chamber of Commerce, what have you, an industry association, can join for free at texascompetes.org. So we'd love to have them. I would love to get us over that 1,500 number there, and that will get you on our list to get our email briefings that say, here are the bills that are moving. This is the committee it's going into, et cetera, which helps you. Small business owners are too busy to do that. Big businesses are dealing with a huge legislative agenda. So we help them cut through all of that and go, this is what's going on. Focus on the stuff that's moving. Because we have, I think, close to 30 anti-LGBTQ bills filed this session. A smaller subset is moving. And so that's where folks need to pay attention, right? So we would be happy to do that. And so would welcome anybody who wants Texas to be welcoming and safe for everybody.
Well, I'm going to join. I'm going to register my law firm and Texas Competes.
Love that.
So, I will help you get that, up to that 1,500, and
Thanks,
encourage
sir.
Everybody listening on this pod and watching this. And, it's the right thing to do, but it's all about that organization. And so I truly, truly appreciate it. And Amber, I want to end with you. We're going, we're going to wrap up in a minute, but just, Sully and I, we're fortunate that we have each other. And so when I have a bad day, she lifts me up. And when she has a bad day, I try to lift her up. And, sometimes I know you sort of feel like you're going at this alone, and it can be overwhelming. How can we help you and other moms and other parents? And how can we support, Max and folks that are just fighting to be treated like human beings?
I'm going to cry that you asked me this question. Because I'm doing this alone. Like, this is not my job. I'm a business owner. Like, I don't get paid for this. I don't get paid to go to Austin and fight these bills. And I feel real exposed right now. I'm not gonna lie. feel really exposed. So thank you for asking that question. The best thing you can do for my son is to kill these bills. That is absolutely the best thing you can do. I don't remember the last time I slept. I have to force myself to eat. I'm stressed. I'm really worried about my kid. I'm really, really worried this year. And I don't want all this time away from him doing interviews and testifying and writing op-eds and like all this, you know, and just honestly just being distracted, trying to fight this to make his life better. I don't want this to just be in vain. Like, this is a lot of work. This is a lot of work. So the best thing you can do for me and for my son and for the countless trans inclusive families across the state and really across the country, because this is just spreading like wildfire, is just shut it down. Just shut it down. We have better, these are my tax dollars at work. I don't want y'all talking about my son's private medical history. He is doing just fine, thank you. I want you all to be supporting women-owned small businesses, fixing the electric grid, you know, providing us, you know, good public schools, clean air and clean water. Like, that's what we should be doing. So please just kill these bills.
Okay.
And I just say too that we're hearing that folks are getting flooded with calls for these bills, folks at the Capitol. And
for or against, Jessica?
Or this is a paid call program. And so I'm sure your listeners are super plugged in, but I always tell people, type "who represents me Texas" into Google and then put in your address, scroll past your congressman, because that's federal, and find your state rep and your state senator and pick up the phone. And it's scary the first time you do it, and then afterwards becomes really easy, and it's their job to hear you. So we know that the polling doesn't support any of this. It's just that folks sometimes don't know that they can pick up the phone and say so.
Right. And you know, Jessica, you're right. I mean, when we get calls all the time and people come in our offices or try to, but when we find out there's somebody from the district, someone with that right zip code or that address we recognize, it becomes real. And so it's not a vanity exercise. It's not a waste of your time to make that call, send that email, you know, express that advocacy. So we're going to leave it there, but thank you for that. And so, you know, Amber, Jessica, Celia, thank you so very much for making time. I know it's been hard to put us all together, but this is a topic that we need to continue to talk about, and we need to never let up on this. And so, you know, I appreciate everything you're doing, and Celia and I have a lot of work to do in this regard, but, you know, we're not going to let you down. So there you have it. I want to thank my special guest, Amber Briggle, State Representative Celia Israel, and Jessica Shortall. We look forward to seeing you next week on Politex.